if I were to tell you that some of the most useful plants in your neighborhood are the same ones people spend all summer trying to kill? Not rare herbs, not some lab-made extract. I mean the low plants in sidewalk cracks, the yellow flowers in your yard, the patch you were told makes your place look messy. For a long time, people ate them, brewed them, and used them on purpose. Then, that changed. So what actually happened? How did free food, free minerals, and free medicine get turned into weeds? And who wins when you forget what grows right under your feet? The reality is, this did not happen by accident. Plants do not wake up one day and become useless. What changes is the story around them, and once that changes, the money follows. There was a time when yards were not supposed to look sterile. A mixed patch of grass, clover, dandelion, plantain, and other wild greens was normal. It was not seen as a failure. It was just land doing what land does. Kids played in it, animals grazed it, people pulled useful leaves from it. But once the modern lawn became a status symbol, that old view had to go. Now, a perfect lawn sounds harmless. Just short grass, clean edges, no wild growth. But here is where things get complicated. That idea did not just sell a look. It sold a problem. Because the moment a mixed yard became a bad yard, millions of useful plants became targets. That opened the door for weed killers, lawn services, landscaping products, and all the rest of it. And at the exact same time, food got more industrial. Diets got more boxed, more refined, more shelf-stable. Bitter leaves fell out of the diet. Mineral-rich wild greens disappeared. Seasonal foraging got replaced by aisles, labels, and health claims. So people lost the plants first, then lost the knowledge of what those plants were doing for them, and then got sold replacement products back at a premium. That right there tells you everything you need to know. If a plant grows for free, cannot be patented, and does not fit neatly into a branded product line, industry has very little reason to keep it in the public story. In fact, it has a reason to do the opposite. It is much better for business if you see nutrition as something that comes in a bottle, a box, or a prescription bag. It is much better if your yard is a dead zone and your health plan starts at the store. Now, technically speaking, that does not mean every company sat in a room and planned all this like a movie villain. That is not the claim. The mechanism is simpler than that. Incentives shape culture. Marketing shapes habits. And once enough money is tied to weed control, processed food, and supplements, anything free and effective starts to look inconvenient. There's also a deeper mismatch here. Humans did not evolve eating only soft, bland, uniform food from sealed packages. We evolved around variety, bitter compounds, mineral-dense leaves, seasonal shifts, more contact with the natural world, not less. Think of your body as a car. If you keep putting the wrong fuel in it, then add chemical fixes every time a warning light comes on, you can keep the thing moving for a while, but you have not fixed the base problem. So in this video, we're going to look at 3 plants that fit this pattern almost perfectly. One was pushed aside while people started buying omega-3 products. One got turned into a status symbol of neglect while people bought detox support. And one was feared for its sting while people paid for mineral pills. First up is the one almost nobody talks about, even though nutritionally, it may be the strongest case of all. Purslane is the one that really breaks the story people have been told. Because when most people hear the phrase plant omega-3s, they think flax, chia, maybe walnuts. They do not think of the thick little plant crawling across hot concrete, garden beds, and the bare edges of a driveway. But that is exactly the point. Purslane looks ordinary, even annoying, which made it very easy to ignore and very easy to remove from the food story. Now, what is it? Purslane is a low-growing succulent with smooth reddish stems and small fleshy green leaves. It spreads close to the ground, almost like it is trying not to be noticed. And yet, nutritionally, it is one of the most interesting edible wild plants people commonly step over. It is known for containing alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which is a plant-form omega-3 fatty acid. It also brings vitamin C, vitamin A, antioxidants, and useful minerals, all in a leaf that stores water and handles rough conditions better than most soft salad greens ever could. Now, you might be wondering, why does this even matter? Because modern diets are loaded with the wrong kind of fat balance. Most people get hammered with linoleic acid from industrial seed oils, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. It is everywhere. Sauces, chips, restaurant food, dressings, frozen meals. So people feel the downstream effects of that mismatch, then go looking for the fix. And what do they get sold? Fish oil pills, fortified products, premium health blends, and endless marketing around omega balance. Technically speaking, plant ALA is not the same thing as the long-chain omega-3s found in fish. That is true, but that does not make purslane irrelevant, not even close. The real point is that one of the most talked about nutrient categories in modern health culture has been growing for free in plain sight, while people were taught to see it as yard trash. That is the rebrand. Purslane thrives in disturbed soil, heat, footpaths, cracks, and neglected corners. In lawn culture, those are all bad signs. They read as disorder, and because purslane hugs the ground and spreads fast, it gets lumped in with the whole invasive nuisance category. But here's the thing, resilience is not the same as worthlessness. In many cases, it is the opposite. A plant that can survive poor conditions, store water, and still produce useful nutrition is not a failure of nature. It is adaptation. That right there tells you everything you need to know. The old model would have looked at a patch of purslane and seen food. The new model looks at it and sees a mess to spray, then turns around and sells you a bottle for the nutrient that the same plant was offering. Of course, this is where we need to be careful. I'm not telling you to walk outside and eat random leaves. Correct ID matters. With purslane, people generally look for those smooth, petal-shaped leaves, the reddish stem, and the dense, low-growth habit. When broken, it should not ooze a milky sap. That part matters because some lookalikes do, and as always, where it grows matters just as much as what it is. Roadside patches, chemically treated lawns, and areas with contamination are not the place. So the lesson with purslane is not just that it is edible, it is that it exposes the whole system. A common plant with real nutritional value got dismissed because it did not fit the business model. And once you see that, the next plant makes even more sense. Because dandelion was not just pushed aside, it was turned into a symbol of neglect itself. Dandelion is the one almost everyone knows, which is what makes the rebrand so effective. You do not need to introduce it to people. They already have an image in their head. A bright yellow flower, a puffball kids blow apart, a weed in the lawn. And that right there is the trick. The plant is familiar, but the knowledge about it is gone. So people recognize it instantly while having no idea why earlier generations actually used it. Now, when people search dandelion today, they usually land on the same set of ideas: dandelion tea, dandelion root, liver support, bloating, digestion, detox. And that should tell you something. The plant did not lose its value. The value just got pushed out of daily life and pulled into niche health products instead. So instead of seeing it in the yard as food, people see it in a capsule, a tea bag, or a powder with a wellness label on it. The whole plant matters here. The leaves, the roots, and the flowers all got used in different ways. The leaves are bitter and mineral rich. People put them in salads, cooked them like greens, or used them when they wanted that sharp, bitter taste modern diets almost completely removed. The root is the part most tied to digestion and liver support in traditional use. It is the one that shows up in roasted blends and detox products. Then you have the flower, which is more than just decoration. People used it in food, infusions, and homemade preparations because the entire plant was seen as useful, not as a lawn defect. So why the bitter taste? This part is simple, and it matters. Bitter is not just a flavor, it is a signal. When bitter compounds hit your mouth, your body starts getting ready. Saliva shifts, digestive secretions increase, bile flow is part of that bigger picture. Think of it like flipping the kitchen lights on before you start cooking. Modern food does the opposite. It is soft, sweet, salty, and easy. So a lot of people go through life barely getting those bitter signals at all, then wonder why digestion feels sluggish and heavy. Now, technically speaking, dandelion is not a magic cure for every liver problem people talk about online. That is not the claim. But the broader point is solid. A plant long connected with digestion and normal fluid balance got turned into a lawn enemy at the exact same time people started buying more products for those same complaints. And lawn care is a huge part of this story. Once a uniform green lawn became the goal, dandelion had to become the villain. Not because it was dangerous, because it stood out. It was visible. One yellow flower in a sea of grass tells you the lawn is alive and mixed, not controlled. But the lawn business does not make money from a living mixed patch. It makes money from the promise of control. Weed and feed products, spray services, seasonal treatments, more inputs for a problem that had to be invented first. That changed how people felt. Dandelions stopped being a normal part of a yard and became a sign you were lazy, poor, or not taking care of your place. So, a useful plant did not just get removed physically, it got loaded with shame. And once that happens, most people do the rest themselves. Of course, same rule as before. Do not eat random plants because a video said they might be useful. Correct ID matters, and clean ground matters even more. Dandelion usually has a basal rosette of jagged leaves, hollow flower stalks, and that familiar yellow bloom that turns into a seed head. But the main risk for most people is not the plant, it is the chemicals on it. If it came from a sprayed lawn, a roadside strip, or contaminated ground, leave it there. So if purslane was dismissed because it looked messy, dandelion went one step further. It was made embarrassing. And once you see that, the last plant is easy to understand. Because they did not just make people dislike it, they taught people to fear touching it. Stinging nettle is the easiest one to dismiss because it fights back. You brush against it once, your skin lights up. And that is the end of the conversation for most people. Pain first, curiosity never. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about how a useful plant gets written off if it is uncomfortable on contact. Most people never make it to the part where it is deeply nourishing once handled the right way. Now, when people search nettle today, the same terms keep coming up. Iron, minerals, seasonal allergies, tea, tonic, and again, we see the same pattern. A plant with a long food and herbal history gets pushed to the edge, while the modern answer becomes a pill, a powder, or a symptom product. Nettle leaves are known for being rich in minerals people commonly worry about now, especially iron, magnesium, and vitamin K. They also show up over and over in traditional use as a spring plant, the kind of thing people reached for after a long winter of poorer food. That makes sense. The body needs raw materials, not just calories, not just flavor. Raw materials, and nettle brings a lot of them in one place. The sting is a defense system. That is all. It does not mean the plant is bad. It means the plant needs handling. Humans have always eaten foods that needed some work first. Some need soaking, some need cooking, some need peeling. Nettle fits that same basic idea. Once prepared properly, the sting is no longer the issue people think it is. And yet, the sting made the rebrand easy. A plant that can be framed as hostile is simple to keep out of the food story. Just teach people to avoid it, call it a nuisance, and move on. Then, later, sell back the same basic support in separate products. Iron pills, mineral blends, allergy formulas, A free plant becomes a paid stack. If you're learning it, broad cues matter. Nettle usually has pointed, toothed leaves, opposite leaf pairs on the stem, and fine hairs that do the stinging. Gloves matter. Clean ground matters. And like the others, this is not something you pull from random roadsides, sprayed areas, or contaminated soil. Knowledge first, always. So when you put purslane, dandelion, and nettle side by side, the pattern stops looking random. 3 different plants, 3 different uses, and the same outcome. Push them out of daily life, strip away the knowledge, then sell people a replacement. One helps cover a nutrient people now buy in capsules. One got tied to digestion and support people now chase through detox marketing. One brings minerals people now hunt through supplements. And all 3 grow in the kinds of places modern culture taught you to ignore: fear or spray. This is not about pretending every wild plant is safe or useful. It is not about eating random leaves to prove a point. The reality is, this is about food literacy. It is about learning which plants matter, why they mattered, and how a whole culture got trained to stop seeing them. Because once useful plants become weeds, you lose more than free nutrition. You lose trust in your own environment. The reality is, some of the most useful plants around you were not pushed aside because they were worthless. They were pushed aside because they were too cheap, too common, and too hard to profit from. If you want, I can make the next video a practical guide on how to identify purslane, dandelion, and nettle safety, what parts people use, and the mistakes to avoid before you ever harvest anything.